Before we move on to the next topic in your fifth unit, we'll just go through, we'll go about a small recap on what we saw in the previous video lecture on thermogravimetry. Okay, so every material has its own ability to withstand heat to an extent. Okay, so we are going to use all these material for different application, and depending upon this ability to withstand its heat or cold, the application will be determined. Okay, so if you want to determine its application, then we have to know all its property, including the thermal property. So for that we need a set of experiments which will give us a brief idea about this particular property, and the instruments like thermal gravimetric analysis, differential thermal analysis, differential scanning calorimetry, thermometric titration, dynamic mechanical analysis, thermomechanical analysis. So all these are different types of thermal analysis which will give a very brief idea about the materials and its property to withstand heat, or what are all the different changes that it undergoes while we are getting exposed to heat or cold. Okay, so as we have already seen, thermogravimetric analysis, it is an instrument where you are going to measure the ability of that particular material to uh, in terms of mass. Okay, when you are going to heat a particular sample, it is going to undergo certain physical or chemical changes. Either it will either melt, or it may boil, or it will undergo dehydration, oxidation. Some kind of transition will be happening in its physical or chemical property. As a result of these changes, its mass may increase or its mass may decrease. Okay, so such kind of changes in mass will give us a brief idea about its thermal property, and that is called thermogravimetry. So we have seen the instrumentation part and all those things, and before we move on, here this is a thermal gravimetric analysis curve or thermogram. Okay, this is a TGA for AgNO3 sample. So if you see, this graph is plotted between temperature and weight loss in percentage. So it has different parts. Okay, the first one is the horizontal part, and then you have a drop, and then again a horizontal part. So if you take these 2 points, okay, this is when the experiment is going to start. The mass is 100%, and in the beginning there is no drop in the mass of the sample. Okay, it is stable till 450 degrees Celsius, and beyond 450 you see there is a drop in its mass. Okay, and it continues up to 550 or so, and beyond 550, then again there is no change in its mass. Okay, so this point, this horizontal portion is called as the plateau, and this temperature at which the mass begins to drop, that is called as Ti, and it continues till Tf. Okay, so this is the least temperature at which there is the chemical reaction or the physical change, it stops. Okay, and then you have the another plateau region is obtained. Okay, and then if you see, we have already seen the instrumentation part. Okay, and there is one more diagram which explains the chemical changes that of calcium oxalate. Okay, so here if you see, it's a step by step process where at each step one reaction is happening. So if you see here, the first step, dehydration process, removal of water molecules is happening at 100 degrees Celsius, and then if you see, there is some decarboxylation taking place. So at each and every step, there will be a weight drop accompanied by some chemical reaction. Okay, so this is about TG curve. So we have seen all the factors and everything. So now we move on to the next type of thermal analysis, and that is called differential thermal analysis method. Okay, so this was studied by Le Chatelier, and he studied it in samples like clays and minerals, and this was further developed by Robert Austin. So here what we are going to do, this is similar to that of thermogravimetry, but here you are going to use a test sample along with a inert reference sample, and now we are going to compare the temperature difference between the both sample. and how it's going to react at the exposure of same temperature. Okay, so it's a technique in which the temperature between the sample and the thermally inert reference substance is continuously recorded as a function of temperature or time. Okay, so both the samples will be kept in the oven at the same time. They are undergoing the same temperature program at controlled environment, and then you are going to see how far they are going to, in what kind of changes is happening in both. Okay, so here if you see, this is going to be the plot which you are going to obtain for this. So the graph is plotted between temperature and delta T. So if you see, depending upon the graph, the type of chemical reactions will be ascertained. If it is a exothermic reaction, you will be getting a curve on positive direction, and if it's an endothermic reaction, then it will be in the opposite direction. Okay, so exothermic reaction means where the heat is liberated, and endothermic reaction is where the heat is absorbed. Okay, so don't confuse with that. Okay, so here, depending upon this kind of thermogram, you are going to determine what kind of reaction is taking place. And generally, if there is no chemical, if there is when the delta T is equal to 0, it means that both the samples are as such. Okay, there is no reaction has taken place. Okay, whenever there is some kind of reaction taken place between the inert or this thing, then definitely there will be a delta T. Okay, so both the sample and reference material must be heated carefully under very controlled condition. So if zero temperature is between the sample or reference material, and it means that the sample does not undergo any type of change. If the reaction has taken place, then delta T will definitely will be absorbed between the sample and the reference material on the test sample. Okay, so some changes will result in heat being absorbed, and that is called endothermic reaction. So what are the possible endothermic reaction? Melting, vaporization, sublimation, and some other transition in crystal structures. Okay, all these things will be accompanied by endothermic changes. Okay, and then so you'll be getting a curve in the opposite direction. Okay, and then chemical reactions can be endothermic as well, like dehydration, decomposition, oxidation, reduction, solid state reaction. Okay, and then you have exothermic reaction. Under exothermic reaction you have freezing. Okay, and then crystal formation, decomposition, oxidation, reduction, and chemisorption. All these things are exothermic reactions. Okay, so there are also physical changes that are not simple phase changes, that are still cause sample temperature to change. And here glass transition, where there's a change in amorphous material to a brittle vitreous state or to a plastic kind of rubber state, that is also observed in some kind of chemicals. Okay, or even polymers. So if you see the instrumentation part, it's similar to that of TGA. So the sample and reference crucibles are generally, first you see about the sample holder. Okay, sample and reference crucibles are generally metallic, aluminium or platinum or ceramic, and they are widely used. So we have already seen in the earlier ones, right? Either crucible or cup shaped or shallow pans are used, but shallow pans uh, are widely being preferred due to its heat transfer property and homogeneous distribution and all. Okay, and then when the area of contact between the sample and the pan is should be maximum. Okay, and then the samples are generally in the range of 1 to 10 mg, and then the dimension of the crucibles and that of cell walls are as nearly identical as possible. Okay, so both should be of the same size. um, okay, and then the furnace, the sample and the reference should be matched thermally and arranged symmetrically with the furnace so that they are both heated or cooled in an identical manner. Okay, and the metal blocks surrounding the walls, it is going to act like a heat sink so that the heat is not transmitted out of the instrument. Okay, there is no heat loss. Okay, and then the temperature of the heat sink is slowly increased using an internal heater. You're going to place a thermocouple or some kind of some heating source should be there, right? The sink in turn simultaneously heats the sample and the reference material at the same time. Okay, and then you have the sensors for recording. A pair of matched thermocouples are used here. One pair is in contact with the sample or the sample container. The other pair is in contact with the reference. Okay, so you are going to use two pairs, sorry, one pair, in which one will be in contact with the sample and other one is for the reference. The output of the differential thermocouple will be del T, is amplified and it is sent to the data acquisition system. This follows the difference in temperature between the samples and it is recorded as a function of the sample temperature and the reference temperature. This is the instrument. So if you see, here is the pan on which you have the crucibles for sample and reference. You have the furnace. Okay, it's going to be like insulated. Okay, that's why they have shaded it. And then you have the gas in and gas out and all those things. And you have the sensor for measuring the temperature. Then you have the sensor amplifier. Okay, and then you have the programmer which is connected to the computer. The operating temperature for these instruments will be generally in the range of room temperature to 1600 temperature degree Celsius. Okay, and then they can also be operated from 150 to 2400 degrees Celsius. So sometimes if you want to reach the very lowest temperature, then you can liquid nitrogen is accessory is also being supplied to the instrument, because very low cooling cannot be accompanied by electrical cooling devices. Okay, so for that purpose we need accessories like nitrogen cylinders and all. Okay, so when a physical change takes place in the sample, heat is either absorbed or generated. So for example, when the metal carbonate, that's not necessary. Okay, so what is the application of this thing? DTA, it is used to detect the decomposition or volatilization of the sample, physical changes that do not involve weight changes, okay, that can be detected in DTA. Okay, so not all the physical or chemical changes is accompanied by weight loss and it cannot be determined using thermogravimetry. So for that purpose we are going for DTA, because some process like crystal changes, melting and all can be measured only using this kind of instruments. Okay, where endothermic and exothermic transitions are taking place rather than some weight loss. Okay, so the main use of DTA is to detect the thermal process and characterize them as exothermic, endothermic, reversible or irreversible. Okay, so this is a general example of how some crystalline molecule is reacting to this type instrument. Okay, so that's it. This is used widely in most polymer chemistry and for determining the application of a particular polymer, nanomaterials and many other applications as well. Okay, so I think with this we will wind off this particular topic. Maybe I can show you the schematic diagram. Uh, Okay, I think this will do. Okay, if you can look for other notes as well, from there are so many PowerPoints available and PDFs are available. You can refer them for further notes.